I love that the friendship in Persona games always start with the funny wingman, then the cute girl next door, and then the prettiest lady in class, only to end up with absolutely nothing, because playing Persona games, it's your entire social life. There's one thing Persona 4 does better than almost any other game in the series. And no, it's not the combat, it's not the dungeons, and it definitely isn't the fishing. I'm talking about something much more important: friendship. Because when people talk about the best relationships in Persona, the conversation usually turns into a popularity contest. Some say Junpei has the best character arc, others will say that Akinari's social link is the best. But we can all agree that Aika needs to show up in P4R. But that's not what I'm actually talking about. I'm not saying that the investigation team has the best individual characters in the series. I'm saying something much more specific. Yosuke and the rest of the team feels like an actual group of friends. Persona 4 understands something that a lot of stories forget. A believable friendship isn't built from people constantly talking about how close they are. It's not from a shared trauma nor a goal to change society altogether. It's built from stupid little moments in between. The jokes they make around with each other, like Yukiko and Chia's cooking.
Wow, are you good at cooking, Senpai? Well, sort of.
What are you saying? Did you already forget the tragedy of the school campout?
The petty arguments that your actual friends would make in real life, like the simple scene of what they're going to eat after botching the curry.
Wait a sec. What are you eating?
Animal crackers?
What the?
The embarrassing moments you get into, and by some divine work, Persona 4 has a lot of those. And most importantly, just wanting to spend time together. That's why you'll see the characters here asking you out to go on bike rides, spend time at a hot spring, go on trips, and many more. Things that your real friends would really do. And Persona 4 understands this better than any other game. So here's why Persona 4 has the best friendship in the series. But before that though, if you love the friendship in Persona games, then like this video and join Otaku Defined for more Persona content.
Man, what are we doing here?
We know that fans would often say Persona 4 has the best friendship, but this doesn't necessarily mean that other Persona titles have weak relationships. The issue lies in how those bonds are presented, both in the story and gameplay aspects. Persona 3 Cs probably has the worst reputation for this, as people would often say that the characters there feel more like co-workers. But looking deeper, that's not actually true, though the fault still lies on the game itself, as they themselves platted it as such. 4Cs was presented as a serious organization with an objective that drives the whole plot of the game. Then we see Mitsuru is quite distant from the others, and most of the game you'll see her refusing to spend time with the player. Akihiko and Junpei, while amazing characters, suffered from not being a social link option in the original, which again made them feel like your classmate or co-worker that you'll only talk to finish an assignment. It's not until the later half of the game where you'll feel the bond among the C's members, and even then, this felt rushed because of the high stakes of the main plot. And this is the reason why I tend to believe that Atlus and P Studio look at that weak point in C's and dedicated in making the best friendship in all of JRPGs. Probably the most important thing that they got is that Persona 4 understands what actual friendship looks like. The biggest difference is actually pretty simple. The investigation team doesn't always need a reason to be together. Think about that. They aren't constantly investigating the case. They're actual teenagers that have the attention span of a wet cat. They aren't always fighting shadows like how Mitsuru would force players to explore Tartarus because they're not grinding hard enough. It's a real thing that happens in P3. They aren't constantly discussing the Midnight Channel. Other times, they'll just spend time berating each other. And they aren't spending every conversation talking about the next plot development. Sometimes, they're actually just hanging out. Like if you zone out a bit from the story, you'll suddenly ask, wait, why are we in the supermarket? After talking about a case. That's what makes them believable, because real friendships aren't built entirely around important moments. Most friendships are built around nothing. You really don't need a world-ending threat to call your friends. Sometimes you just go to the mall, sometimes you grab food, and sometimes you sit around and make fun of your friends because they said something stupid, which happens a lot in Persona 4 and has been a running gag in the game, which delivers the impact of their friendship even harder. The supernatural mystery is the reason these characters met, but friendship is the reason why they stayed together. And Persona 4 constantly reinforces that distinction, especially when some of the characters were friends before you arrive. And this is perhaps the most important distinction. Yosuke, Chie, and Yukiko already have relationships before Yu Narukami enters the picture. Yu didn't really create their social circle. He actually joins it, unlike Ren from P5, who is the foundation and glue of the Phantom Thieves. That alone completely changes the dynamic of the investigation team, and this is something Persona 4 takes advantage of constantly. Chie and Yukiko already have years of history together. Yosuke already knows both of them. And because of that, their conversation don't feel like characters introducing themselves to one another. They know what annoys each other, like Chie flat out telling Yosuke he doesn't have a chance with Yukiko. They know each other's wants and likes, such as why Yosuke knows how to bribe Chie with meat.
Hey, do you know any other words that start with F?
For steak?
Excellent!
Yu is essentially the new kid who gets invited into the group. And as the story progresses, we have a bunch of other characters who naturally assimilate with the investigation team. This even solidifies my point, as when Kanji joins them, he was so stiff at first, knowing that the others are his senpais, but the ice completely breaks because that's just how their friendship is. The best part about this is that the group doesn't revolve entirely around Yu, and that's something Persona 4 deserves a lot more credit for. Yu isn't the only person holding everyone together. If you take Yu away from the investigation team, what happens? They don't suddenly stop being friends. Chie and Yukiko are still best friends, Yosuke and Chie can still annoy each other for hours, Kanji and Naoto develop their own relationship, and Teddy would still announce that Yosuke has a nurse fetish. These relationships don't require you to exist. Because the protagonist isn't the only bridge connecting the characters, the group has multiple connections between everyone, and that makes it feel alive. Every character has relationships that exist outside of you, and that's something Persona 4 gets incredibly right, especially since it allows the characters to be more comfortable and they actually like giving each other a hard time. Real friends aren't constantly telling each other how amazing they are. They roast each other, they tease each other, they argue over stupid things, and Persona 4 does this constantly. Every member of the investigation team gets bullied. Chie will forever be a meathead to them. Risa's bold statement will always be accompanied by a snark remark. And Yosuke exists to suffer in life. This is where Persona 4's humor shines best. The jokes aren't just there to make the audience laugh. They're there to establish their relationships. You learn who feels comfortable teasing who, you learn which character clash, and you learn who can take a joke and who would destroy an entire school because of a fried tofu.
My fried tofu. My fried tofu.
Yukiko,
My fried tofu. My fried tofu. My fried tofu.
That's how groups actually develop personalities. As a result, the investigation team feels less like a cast of characters and more like a group of people who genuinely know and like each other. But the biggest factor why they could do that is because their shadow selves made them understand each other. And this is where Persona 4's central theme becomes extremely important. While Persona 3 is fundamentally about confronting death, and Persona 5 is about rebellion against an unjust society, Persona 4 is much more personal. It's about confronting the parts of yourself that you don't want other people to see. And that's why the shadows are so important, as they strip away the mask of the characters. Before you even unlock their social links, you've already seen these characters at their most vulnerable. Yosuke's shadow exposes his dissatisfaction with Inaba. Chie's shadows reveals her jealousy towards Yukiko. Yukiko's shadows reveals her fear of inheriting the family business. Kanji's shadow exposes his insecurities about how other people perceive him for liking feminine things. Risa's shadow confronts the divide between her idol persona and her private self. Naoto's shadows reflect her struggles with gender expectations and being taken seriously in a male-dominated career. And Teddy, Well, Teddy is trying to understand what he even is. And the genius part is the protagonist isn't the only person who sees this. The investigation team sees each other's shadows. They witness each other's most vulnerable moments. And that creates a bond that is difficult to replicate. Imagine watching your friend have a complete emotional breakdown, not the version they show in public, the real ugly version of themselves. And then, you still accept them afterward. That's what the investigation team does. They don't just learn each other's personalities, they learn of each other's insecurities. And that makes their friendship much deeper. Because they don't just like each other at their best, they know each other at their worst. And that's the very reason why every character developed their own version of friendship. This is where I think Persona 4's friendship becomes so effective. Yosuke gives him the sense of belongingness, since like you, he has moved in different places, never establishing a real connection. Chie challenges her insecurities, especially since she is surrounded with amazing people. Yukiko gives her confidence for the future, Kanji makes him feel accepted for who he is, Rise lets her be her real self and not just the idol identity, Naoto is valued as a person instead of a tool for solving crimes, Teddy is surrounded by people who welcome him despite his dubious origins. And because of this incredible dynamic, Persona 4 had to do what hurts the most, as Persona 4 makes you feel like you're leaving friends behind. Persona 4 takes place over roughly an entire year, which means you're not just watching these characters, you're spending a year with them. Those times spent at the Junes food court, the restless camping trip, the decision to reveal and seize the truth, and then you have to leave. That's why the ending hits differently. You're not just finishing an RPG, you're saying goodbye to your friends. Because Inaba isn't just the location where the story happened anymore. Junes isn't just an ordinary store. The Dojima household isn't just a place where the protagonist lives. And the investigation team isn't just a collection of party members. They're the people you spent an entire year getting to know. That's why the final goodbye hurts. And that is something Persona 4 understands better than any other games in the series. This is probably why I'm so excited to play the remake. It's not just about nostalgia, but how Persona 4 expertly presented the bonds of the cast is a masterclass of their own. But how about you guys? Do you think Persona 4 really has the best friendship in JRPGs? I know PT gets a bad rep for having the worst, but at least Reload fixed that problem. And actually, there are a lot of great things Persona 3 Reload did for improving Persona 3. If you're curious about that, then check this video out. Join Otaku Defined for more Persona content. This is Math, and stay awesome, my dudes.